Jeder Mensch ist Kunst. That means every person is art. And that statement, well, it's not just a title. It's the absolute core of a really challenging and kind of grotesque art project we're about to dive into. But trust me, underneath all the weirdness, there's a surprisingly deep message. So let's just jump in and look at the work itself.
Okay, so first up we have what's called the flesh phone. And yeah, it's a vintage telephone, but its entire surface is covered in this textured, organic-looking stuff. And what is that stuff? It's preserved salmon. Yep, fish. And it definitely doesn't stop there. The artist took this idea and just ran with it, applying it to all sorts of everyday household things. You've got a shower curtain, some wall clocks, even a spiral notebook, and they're all covered in that same, visceral, fleshy texture. And then there's this, a gumball machine. But instead of gumballs, it's filled with what the artists call fish meat balls. They're literally little spheres of preserved salmon flesh, all wrapped up in plastic. It's strange, right? It's unsettling, and you can bet that's exactly what they were going for.
So I'm guessing you're probably asking the same thing I was when I first saw this. Like, what is going on here? How is this even art? And what could it possibly be trying to say? Well, that's the big question we're going to unpack right now. All right, so is this all just for shock value, just to get a reaction? Not at all. To really get what's happening here, we have to look at the one single idea that unlocks this whole thing.
And here it is. This is the project's mantra. Every person is art. Flesh is art. You see? They're making a super direct, super literal connection. The logic is, if every single one of us is a work of art, then our actual substance, our flesh, is the raw material. But this kind of radical idea didn't just appear out of thin air.
This whole concept actually builds on the work of a really famous 20th century artist. And where it came from? Well, it's a pretty fascinating story of how ideas can evolve. That artist's name was Joseph Beuys. And this guy was an absolute revolutionary in the art world. He was famous for just completely pushing boundaries and for his belief that art could be this incredibly powerful force for changing society.
Okay, now pay close attention to this because the difference is subtle, but it's everything. Beuys famously said, every person is an artist. The idea was that everyone has creative potential inside them. But the artists behind this project, they call themselves the Joblin Factory, they tweaked it just a little. They said every person is a work of art. See the shift? It's not about what we can do anymore. It's about what we fundamentally are.
So you have this big philosophical idea. How do you make it real? How do you make it something people can touch and see? Well, you build a factory of flesh.
But why use flesh? And why salmon flesh of all things? Well, it's because it's a stand-in for our flesh. It's the most direct, the most visceral way to connect that big, abstract idea, humanity is art, to our physical reality. The fact that we're all just bodies, creatures of flesh and blood.
And this really shows you the whole transformation. Just look. On the left, you've got the raw material, right? It's just packages of salmon from the store. But then on the right, you see the result. That same fish is now this collection of intricate sculptures. It's literally the journey from raw stuff to a finished piece of art. But here's the thing. Making these weird, fleshy objects, that wasn't enough for them. The artists had a much bigger goal. They did not want this provocative idea to just get locked away in some stuffy, exclusive art gallery.
So what did they do? They came up with something called the Top Shop Gallery. And the whole concept was to basically smash together a traditional art gallery with like an accessible shop or a clothing store. The goal was to make the art something everyone could get their hands on, not just a bunch of wealthy collectors. And I mean, they put this flesh art on everything. You've got t-shirts, hoodies, bags, backpacks, shower curtains, phone cases, notebooks, wall clocks, even leggings and posters. The point wasn't just to sell stuff. The real goal was to sneak this challenging idea into people's everyday lives. And that's the whole point, really. The goal was to bring this provocative message right into people's homes, to everyone, not just the upper class. By putting a picture of that weird flesh telephone on, say, a shower curtain, you're forcing a conversation. You're using regular old shopping to spread this big idea to people who would probably never set foot in a modern art gallery.
Okay, so this is where it all comes together. It's not really about salmon or t-shirts. It's about something much, much bigger.
It's about dignity, it's about rights, and it's about what it even means to be human. What you're looking at here is a document called the Kunstrechte. That just translates to art rights. And this is the project's manifesto. They've basically taken the language of law and twisted it to fit their big idea about art.
So check out right number 1. The dignity of man as art is inviolable. Now this is a direct callback to the first article of the German Constitution, which says human dignity is inviolable. But see how they've reframed it. Here, our dignity is sacred because we are works of art.
And then there's right number 2. It says every person has the freedom to be art, that they have the right to unfold as art, to live, to love, and to die. So it's taking these basic human rights, life, freedom, and looking at them through this new lens. The idea is we should have the right to become who we are, with the same kind of protection you'd give a priceless masterpiece. And this, right here, is the big aha moment. The entire project, the unsettling flesh sculptures, the weird shower curtains, all of it. It's all been one giant setup for this one idea. What if we stopped thinking about human rights as some abstract legal thing, and instead thought of them as art rights, arguing that our value is as fundamental as a priceless work of art? I mean, maybe we'd all treat each other a little differently, right? And to really hammer this point home, the artists use one last, really powerful tool. They take these beautiful, ornate picture frames, but instead of a painting, they just put a mirror inside.
So what happens? You walk up to look at the art and you just see your own reflection staring back at you. The mirror forces this final question. You're not just looking at the art anymore because the art is you. The message is so clear. You are the subject here.
And that's really where this whole thing leaves us, with one last question that turns everything right back around on you. If you are a work of art, what does that change? If you just accept that idea, even for a second, that you, right now, are a priceless, irreplaceable work of art, what does that change about how you see yourself? And maybe more importantly, how you see everybody else?